Well, since we all seem to be here, I'm going to start a minute early. Jess, would you please call the roll? Let me, oh, you got that? Let me, before you go on, there's a card in front of your microphone. You need to press it, and the green light will come on to talk, and it will stay on. So if once you're done talking, it might be in your best interest to press it again.
Regent Delgado?
Here.
Regent Evers? Regent Felbo?
Here.
Regent Farrow?
Here.
Regent Hall? Regent Harsey?
Here.
Regent Higgins?
Here.
Regent Menedietz?
Here.
Regent Milner? Here. Regent Mueller?
Here.
Regent Peterson? Regent Pruitt?
Here.
Regent Purek?
Here.
Regent Vasquez?
Here.
Regent Walsh?
Here.
Regent Whitburn?
Here.
The quorum is present.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. We're very pleased to be here in Oshkosh and to have this opportunity to see and hear about all the exciting things that are happening on this campus. If you haven't had a chance to look around this new facility we're in, I'd encourage you to do so. It's pretty impressive. We're also pleased to be here to share in the UW-Oshkosh community's bidding farewell to Chancellor Wells. And we will have more on that later. Probably much more on that later, Rick. I'd also like to welcome the classified staff that's representing all of our institutions here to observe what the Board of Regents does, and also to meet and to solidify their process of how they support their campuses and how they support the system. So welcome, classified staff. Throw a hand up wherever you are. On behalf of the board, I'd like to thank Chancellor Wells and his team for their excellent hospitality. We had a wonderful reception last night. It was jovial, it was excited, it was sad, and it meant a lot, I think, to a lot of people. It sure did to me. So thank you for that reception. UW-Oshkosh clearly is a campus on the move, and we look forward to seeing and hearing more about that later today and tomorrow. And before we get started, I believe President Cross has a few introductions he'd like to make.
It is my pleasure this afternoon to welcome you to the system of the board. UW three-day Chancellor Richard Wells, UW Chancellor UW-South Chancellor Robert Meyer. Gary, would you stand up? Would you remain standing? No. Chancellor Gary Miller started in his new role on August 1st. He's coming to us from the University of North Carolina at Wilmington, where he served as chancellor. He previously served as provost and vice president for academic affairs and research at Wichita State University, and was dean of the College of Arts and Sciences at the University of the Pacific. He previously was a faculty member at the University of Mississippi, Weber State University, and Mississippi State University. He holds a PhD in biological sciences from Mississippi State, and he earned his master's and a bachelor of science degree, both in biology, from the College of William and Mary. Gary succeeds Tom Harden as UWGB's sixth chancellor. So you and Georgia, I hope you feel very welcome. Thank you.
Chancellor Bob Meyer, yes, you picked up on that standing up, didn't you? Chancellor Meyer is the seventh leader of UW Stout, and he's been on the job about a week and a half? 4 days. 4 days. Oh, it seems like a week and a half. Is that right? Robert served as president of Wisconsin Indian Head Technical College in Shell Lake since 2008. Since he formally was on the campus, he spent 25 years prior to that at UW Stout in various professional roles. Doubt that he really needs to find his way around Stout, although things have changed in 6 years. Those roles included Assistant to the Chancellor for State and Federal Relations, Dean of the College of Technology, Engineering, and Management, Associate Dean of Students, and Director of the Stout Technology Transfer Institute. He holds a PhD in Industrial Engineering from the University of Minnesota. He earned a Master's in Management Technology and a BS in Industrial Education, both at UW-Stout. Chancellor Meyer succeeds Chuck Sorensen, who recently retired after 26 years as the campus's leader. Welcome aboard, Bob. We're really glad to have you here. Here at Oshkosh, I would like to recognize Petra Roeder, who will assume the role of interim UW-Oshkosh Chancellor when Rick steps down. Petra. Oh. I think the rule is you remain standing, Petra? Rick, did Rick put you in the back corner for a reason? Rick, you rascal. Petra is currently Vice Chancellor of Student Affairs and has been part of a strong leadership team here at UW-Oshkosh for nearly a decade. She also served as Interim Associate Vice President for Academic and Student Affairs with UW System Administration from July of 2011 to May of 2012. The campus's community, faculty, staff, and many stakeholders can be confident that she will keep our third largest institution focused on its mission, and she will be less verbose than Rick. It is also my pleasure to introduce UW System's new Chief Audit Executive, Lori Stortz. Where's Lori? There's Lori. In this new role, Lori is responsible for managing all internal audit functions at UW System, enterprise risk management, and compliance with state and federal laws and regulations. Lori is a certified public accountant and has served as audit partner and Milwaukee office managing partner at McGladrey LP since 2007. She previously was an audit partner at Deloitte & Touche and BDO USA, both in Milwaukee. She will report directly to the board through the board's audit committee, as well as to me. Lori earned a Bachelor of Business Administration degree in accounting from UW-Whitewater and also has served on that campus's accounting advisory board. She serves on multiple boards in southeast Wisconsin and was named a winner of a Woman of Influence Award in 2013 by the Milwaukee Business Journal. She is a proven, experienced leader, and we are delighted to have her join us. Welcome, Lori. I would also like to welcome UW-Madison's new provost, Sarah Mangelsdorf. Sarah, would you stand? Sarah, who succeeds Paul DeLuca, was previously Dean of Northwestern University's Weinberg College of Arts and Sciences. She also was a professor in Northwestern's Department of Psychology and is an internationally known scholar who studies the socio-emotional development of infants and young children. Might be appropriate at times in a higher education setting. Her family has a long background in academia. Her grandfather was a plant geneticist at Harvard, while her father taught physics at Swarthmore and worked summers at the Woods Hole Oceanographic Institution. She earned her bachelor's degree in psychology from Oberlin and her doctorate in child psychology from the University of Minnesota. Welcome aboard, Sarah. We're glad to have you here. President Felbo.
Thank you, President Cross. Without further ado, I'm going to turn things over to our host, Chancellor Rick Wells, our longest-serving chancellor presently. And he's going to lead a presentation entitled, We're in this Chancellorship Together, UW-Oshkosh Campus, Academic, Collaborative, and Reputational Transformation since 2000.
Thank you, Regent President Falbo. You notice now that I'm getting close to retirement, I'm turning to long titles of published articles. I don't know if I put a colon in there or not, but I tried that. And I would like to take this opportunity to quickly acknowledge the outstanding service of Chuck Sorensen as Chancellor for 24 years. Yeah. And I really appreciate the fact that he finally decided to retire, because I just wanted a week or two of being the longest serving Chancellor. So he retired August 15th. So Joe Gow, you're up next, buddy. Okay. Regents, UW system leaders, colleagues, and guests, I want to welcome you to the University of Wisconsin-Oshkosh. We're extremely honored and proud to host you here today and tomorrow. First, a little bit about us. Today, I want to begin by talking to you about the effort we've made and the successes we've had in developing our university-wide horizontal distinctiveness these last 14 years. We're really focused on and committed to developing a strong reputation in what I believe to be three key areas. We have earned national acclaim for a highly successful implementation of a comprehensive sustainability plan. We have developed a national reputation for collaborative education programs and a catalyst for unique community and regional economic development partnerships. And we see an emerging national distinction as a transformative change agent in general education. But when you drill down, what does distinctiveness really mean at UW-Oshkosh? Well, I'd like to spend the rest of my time today providing you a detailed 45-point overview of the many, many ways in the last 14 years we have really honed.
All right, no. We've all just had a decent lunch. We don't want to hear 45 topics. No, that's way too many. You know what, Chancellor, you've done great things here at our university. Why don't you just take a seat, relax, and, like the title of your presentation, we're all in this together. We got this, all right?
All right, Jordan.
Regents, President Cross, UW system leaders, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Jordan Shettle. I am a third-year student here at UW-Oshkosh, president of the Oshkosh Student Association, and a Student Titan Employment Program intern working this summer in our financial aid office. Now, enough about me. Let's get to work here. With Chancellor Wells' help and leadership, we have really achieved some incredible things here at UW-Oshkosh. The list is tremendous. Educational initiatives that we have all helped launch and keep alive have strengthened our reputation in so many ways. Our science, technology, engineering, and math education students lend their talents each year to a series of family STEM nights at local middle schools. It's a win-win for both the K-12 students as well as our future teachers, for they truly get to interact with students and light the fires of learning on some pretty important subjects. Just this year, we worked with more than a dozen educational partners and manufacturing and industry leaders in this region to launch a new engineering technology program that will start up this fall. 4-year, 2-year, and technical colleges can work side by side to develop and deliver this new program. Now, as I had mentioned, I am a Student Titan Employment Program, or as we call here, STEP student, at UW-Oshkosh. This high-impact, on-campus internship and the programs that we have developed remain a priority for us. They are helping students earn and learn, keeping college work connected to our studies and helpful of our investment in education. Students can even earn up to $3,000 a year, and these jobs help them drive the campus that propels us. We're also, with all of your help, tackling the nursing shortage by better investing in our faculty and members' development through the Nurses for Wisconsin initiative. Now, I truly could go on and on about the things we do here, but why don't you just take a look for yourselves.
Well, it's a family night, and it's just a great way to bring our community into the school. Anytime we can promote, science, technology, engineering, the math fields is outstanding.
It just gets them really excited about science.
An effort is about to begin right here in our area to train more engineers.
And dozens of colleges in the area are working together to make this new program a possibility.
There's nothing like this degree program anywhere in the United States.
The UW-Oshkosh Environmental Research and Innovation Center is set to be just one of more than a dozen different backdrops for the next generation of engineers.
There's been a general frustration in this part of our state that we've not had any baccalaureate engineering technology degree programs.
A degree shortage that will be addressed starting this fall as part of the Northeast Wisconsin Educational Resource Alliance partnership known as New Era. It's made up of 12 technical colleges as well as 2- and 4-year universities.
It really shows how in higher education today students are moving from one institution to the other, being enrolled in more than one institution at the same time, taking online classes, but moving ahead in a degree program that looks so different than the degree program used to look.
A collaboration more than a decade in the making for a program that will fill degrees in electrical, environmental, and mechanical engineering technology jobs.
I'm Brian Gallops. I'm a web developer here at EAA. So I was a web developer at Polk Library. The biggest one that I did was a map of the library with the computers availability on there. So any computer that was being used or not being used by students would show up differently on the map, and they can see whether a computer's open or not for printing or just doing work on it or whatever. So a lot of the experience that I got there was the reason I was able to get the job here. I wouldn't have had the experience otherwise to do this. I would have had to start somewhere else. So it's kind of like I got my junior web developer experience out of the way. It's definitely helpful to kind of get a jump start. Honestly, I probably wouldn't have been able to do it otherwise because I'd still have to have a part-time job to pay for rent and things like that. So it's transitioning your part-time hours that you would do at a restaurant or whatever into something that's more useful for your major.
I am an ER nurse. I've been there for 7 years. At a local hospital, and I try to work there as much as I can to maintain clinical competency. So Nurses for Wisconsin Initiative is a grant that allows the College of Nursing really to be kind of on the cutting edge in terms of diversifying the nursing faculty. There is a need nationwide for nurses to meet the baby boomers as they're aging, healthcare, etc., and we just aren't able to keep up because we don't have qualified nursing faculty that are PhD prepared. In Wisconsin, this Nurses for Wisconsin initiative actually addresses that need by employing or allowing financial assistance for PhD prepared educators to come here for 3 years and teach full time. And it really helps put UW-Oshkosh on the map and be able to bring these highly qualified educators to our campus and help them out financially. It was always in the back of my mind, how am I going to be able to afford this and be able to take care of my family and be able to work and to fit all these pieces into my life. And so it really has been able to allow me to focus entirely on my education and not so worry so much about how we're going to pay for it. We're always looking to see how can we meet the needs of the community, how can we meet the needs of the students, how can we be better. To be able to go out into the community and see these nurses that we have educated or helped grow as nurses and see the things that they're doing is amazing.
This chancellor thinks pretty easy. I could do this, you know.
That wasn't in the script. I don't know if you heard him. He says, "This chance." How about a great round of applause for Jordan Shuttle? Well done. Well done, folks. Okay, not bad, Jordan. He's just another great example of excellence and opportunity in action here at UW-Oshkosh. So, okay, now back to business. Where was I? Oh, yeah. So at UW-Oshkosh, the critical thing we're tackling. Yes, Jordan. Another Jordan.
Yes. I think we all can agree that you've given enough presentations in your 14 years here. It's probably best I take over from here.
I don't know. What do you think, everybody? All right. Welcome, Jordan.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jordan Johnson. I'm a 2009 graduate of UW-Oshkosh and a member of the entrepreneurship program here at UWO. I am the founder and owner of the Pro Shot Training Bands, a basketball training device. In just a few minutes, you'll learn more about my business and how UW-Oshkosh and its Alta Resource Center for Entrepreneurship and Innovation helped me get off the ground. The Alta CEI is just one example of something UW-Oshkosh has become known for during Chancellor Wells' tenure and our campus community's hard work over these last 14 years. Partnerships. Our UW-Oshkosh Foundation, where I work, has also demonstrated incredible partnership by working hand in hand with the City of Oshkosh and investors to resurrect downtown Oshkosh's Riverfront Hotel and Convention Center, where many of you are staying. And UW-Oshkosh has partnered with biogas and sustainability companies and Wisconsin's largest dairy farm to turn waste to energy. It supplies the grid with renewable energy. It helps a community address an environmental challenge and gives our environmental studies and future environmental engineering students a one-of-a-kind educational experience. These are just a few of the dozens and dozens of examples of partnership our university, its colleges, and our foundation are building. Here's a closer look.
We've been fortunate enough to have great discussions with the university about a whole range of community needs. The hotel is just one example of some great collaborations we've had. And I think the university recognized that they had a role to play and they had assets and talents to bring to this. The university, with their academic mission, really identified a way that they could bring together students who needed to learn or wanted to learn about the hotel business or just business in general. But they also saw that it was going to provide a greater need to the community. Having the hotel revitalized was also core to redeveloping the downtown and linking the downtown with the university in many different ways. The university's role cannot be understated. If it wasn't for them, literally this project wouldn't have happened.
The potential business tycoons of tomorrow may still be in college today, and UW-Oshkosh is looking to make those students even before they graduate.
UW-Oshkosh announced today it is partnering with a NINA-based company to help students start their businesses. Basketball gave Jordan Johnson a light bulb moment.
Through a lot of videotape and a lot of different training sessions, I found that there's a lot of inconsistencies in players shooting.
That observation led to Johnson's patent-pending GoPro shot. To help propel his business, Johnson went to his alma mater, UW-Oshkosh.
Said, you know, here's my product, here's my idea, how can you guys help?
I had many students asking me what they can do in order to start a business, what kind of resources were available.
The school announced Alta Resources of MENA had stepped up to assist. Through the partnership, Alta Resources will give the student entrepreneurs funding and mentoring.
We have a lot of entrepreneurs in our organization who will engage directly with the students, and they'll have a place to go talk, and I'd love if some of us invest in some of their businesses too. Their sense of enthusiasm, their creativity.
They have these ideas, they think that they can make a business out of it. What I want to tell them is go for it.
And it's going to be a win for green energy, the citizens that want green energy. It's a win for the university because I see the training and the enthusiasm towards the program, Chancellor. And it's certainly a win for the farm because we get to be a part of what a great project.
The energy consumption is going up. People are demanding more needs for energy, and conversely, we have to look at diverse ways of providing that. So, you know, who would have thought 20 years ago you'd have an engineering facility on a very large dairy that could provide enough energy to take care of the energy needs of a small residential community. We've got a world-class digester company that has 350 of these in Europe. They know the technology, and we've got a university committed to green principles. It couldn't have come together any better than that.
Notice he didn't want to have anything to do with that Chancellor stuff. So. Good job, Jordan. Okay. Let's see. Sorry about the interruption again. I've got to find my room. Uh-oh. All right. Come on, Joe.
Well, you know, if it's not too much trouble, can I come on up there?
I think so. Well, I guess I better start appreciating it too, right?
Thank you, Chancellor, for stepping over for just today, I guess. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Joseph Allen, if you've seen O'Brien, or you can just call me Joe for short. Right now, I'm a senior at UW-O, a double major in accounting and finance. And in this last semester, I had the opportunity of a lifetime. I served as a peer mentor in our year-old University Studies program, or as you can call USP. The homegrown transformation at UW-Oshkosh. I've helped guide students through their freshman year in their first couple semesters, as we like to call Quest. This fall, we'll be launching Quest 3 for the first time, where courses will venture off campus and into the community, connecting with non-for-profits, local farms, and other organizations whose work directly ties into the new and engaging classes here at UW-O. The USP is built around three signature questions: involving sustainability, civic engagement, and intercultural knowledge. It strengthens our writing and speaking skills, or as Chancellor Wells likes to fondly calls those higher cognitive skills or soft skills. And the USP is helping students on a successful path towards the degree by using small groups and peer mentors like myself. It's one more way amongst hundreds at UW-Oshkosh that we're improving quality. Another is ensuring that in everything we do here, we keep inclusive excellence as part of our mission. For me, inclusive excellence is all about embracing differences, sharing our unique talents, perspectives, and values. It's about making sure everyone, students, faculty, and staff, have an equal opportunity to share and succeed. Here's a look at just a few more ways that at UW-Oshkosh, we're transforming education and making sure that we keep everything inclusive for all here at UW-O.
I define inclusive excellence at UW-Oshkosh as an opportunity to integrate people from different backgrounds into the fabric of who we are and what we do every day at the university.
It recognizes all the different talents, abilities, needs that anybody that coming to a university like UW-Oshkosh possesses, and tries to make sure we maximize access to each other's strengths, limitations, talents, things that we can contribute, to our community.
Active and intentional engagement with diversity.
Everyone matters, and everybody has a sense of security and safety here on campus.
Inclusive excellence is about including as many people as possible, bringing as many people to the table to engage in the excellent life of the mind, the rigor of exploring the world around them.
Credit for prior learning is an opportunity for students to earn credit for learning that they may have attained through work, through hobbies, through some sort of life experience.
Just the process was exactly what I needed. It helped me to think about what I learned along my life journey and how to apply it.
I wish I had done it 30 years ago or so. I did it with a long-term goal, thinking I could do this maybe, and the last 2 years it's like, yes, I can.
It's redefining general education in a way that's going to be extremely beneficial in the long term.
The classes are manageable. The professors understand that you're freshmen, so you're not used to it, but that's where the transition comes in.
My peer mentor helped me out a lot, and I actually just got a job for a peer mentor next semester, so I'm hoping that I can give back what she gave to me.
USP is designed, University Studies program, designed to help students integrate the whole of their education.
Thank you, Joe. Okay, so now let's finally dive back into my presentation. I really appreciate everybody's patience. I've got about one more week before retirement, and I've got, uh-oh.
Hi. How are you?
All right, Stephanie, how are you?
I'm good. If you let me come up there.
Well, again, I don't dare defy you in front of, you students are what we're all about, right? So I have no choice.
So you got to take a seat.
You want to escort me, or do I have to take it?
If you want me to.
Well, yeah, would you?
Yeah, of course. Of course. Can I go on the floor with you too while we're at it? Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Stephanie Peffer. I'm a senior here at the University of Wisconsin-Oshkosh. I'm an environmental studies major with a double minor in business and sustainable management. I'm also part of the STEP program as an intern for our sustainability director here on campus, Brian Kermath. With Chancellor Wells' support and guidance over these last 14 years, we've really become a sustainable institution like no other. Sustainability is involved in everything we do. It is part of our university studies program. It is how we build buildings. It is how we budget and plan. The campus is now home to, count them, 2 Gold LEED certified buildings, Sage and Horizon Village. All of our buildings are now being built to that standard. The campus has been ranked as high as 14th nationally for Sierra Magazine and Sierra Club's Coolest Schools, a measure of how green we are. We are a Tree Campus USA, and we have helped donate and recycle tons of materials during our move-out days. And yes, the stuff we literally scrape off our dining trays becomes the fuel that powers our campus biodigester. And just then, hot off the presses, we have just completed the update to our comprehensive campus sustainability plan. It's full of a host of new goals that will keep us to sustainable life and learning well after the Chancellor's retirement. And finally, this summer, I was able to partake in an 8-week internship with Wiesmann in Allendorf, Germany. They're a leader in sustainable heating and cooling technology while also being the designer for our very own biodigester on campus. I've said this to you before, but I want to thank you again, and I can't thank you enough for the opportunity that you gave me to go there. I've learned so much being there, and I am excited to bring back all those opportunities here at Oshkosh. But with all that said, we know being sustainable really means investing the hard work and talent of our university faculty, staff, and students on a day-to-day basis. Let's take a closer look.
Here on campus, sustainability isn't just a word. It's a practice that they like to maintain, and I think they take big pride. What we're doing is the right thing. I think, saving tax dollars and using them efficiently is something every campus should be doing. I just think that's phenomenal that we're at that point. But we have a ways to go. We have long stuff to do yet, and we have. But it's pretty prideful, I think.
Just part of the ownership of working here. People come, they stay, and because of that, they take a pride in making that the most efficient place and the nicest place to work that they can be in, too, for everybody.
It's important to know that it's a team effort. From our grounds department, if you look around, you'll see it. We went from the annual flower beds to perennials, requiring less watering, less general maintenance. And I think in every department, you look at our custodial department also, they're going more green, using green chemicals. It's all good for sustainability. So it's not just a one group effort, it's the entire team.
Because we are trying to be good stewards of the taxpayer dollars, anytime we can save some money by doing green projects, absolutely. We all feel good about that. We're working on making this place more efficient, whatever way we can.
Thank you, Stephanie. Well, unless there's somebody else out there who wants to interrupt me, is this the time to do it? Okay, good, finally. Now, what I want to emphasize in conclusion today is what we here at UW-Oshkosh know to be our three big remaining challenges. They are, oh well, I must learn from the students. Take a look.
We still have some very significant challenges that we have to address. I call them character building challenges. They're still there, and we won't become a great institution until we do something about continuing to enhance the quality of the education that all of our undergraduates receive here, and our graduate students as well. We've got some achievement gaps to close, a very persisting challenge and problem. Our students of color are not getting the same access to high-quality educational experiences they have a right to, as well as our first-generation students. We're focusing on transfer students and others that tend to not get the same priority to the educational quality institution. We also are doing things in terms of bringing more paid internships for our students, both on campus and off campus, to help them with the affordability, the merger of work and study around the essential learning outcomes that our faculty want our graduates to be able to master. And then that third big area for us, before we can claim that we're at least starting to approach greatness, is we've got to do something about the compensation, where our compensation is not competitive, particularly our salary compensation. If our faculty and staff don't feel fully respected, appreciated, engaged, supported, empowered to do all the things that we're asking them to do on behalf of our students and the broader public and the business community out there, then it's very hard for us to become an ever better institution. So those are the odds that we need to beat. So we talk a lot about trying to figure out how to get our students more engaged, and you can never forget that you got to make sure that your employees, your faculty, your staff feel engaged and empowered to engage the students. So it's something I think that we're very pleased about, that we've been able to rise above the fray, so to speak, during these very challenging character building times.
Thank you. That concludes our presentation. I would like our four students to come back up and join me, since they gave it, in case there are any questions. Would you just come forward, and then we'll give you a round of applause together, too. So, Regent Falbo, if there are any questions, I will defer to the students, of course. I always tell people chancellors know about a lot of things, but the depth of their knowledge is a nanometer deep. That means we can answer one question about any topic, otherwise we've got to get back to you. So, you guys ready? All right, Questions?
Chancellor, I have to tell you that this is the most informative, effective, concise, and in-depth presentation you've ever given. Is there any questions, comments? And I'd also like to really thank the four presenters. I don't know about you, but it always, for me, when you see something like that, it's like going to commencement. You know why you do this. And you're the reason for those kind of successes.
Thank you, guys.
Next, we will move on to the exciting biennial budget request. First, we will hear from Ray, who I believe has assembled a very thoughtful examination of what the system has been, is, and what it should look like in the future. He will lay out his conceptual vision for the future and how this guided the development of his proposal to us today. I'm excited for you to hear Ray's presentation. We'll have more to say on that later. Then we will hear from Senior Vice President David Miller, who will outline the specifics of the recommendation. President Cross?
Thank you, President. Thank you, President Falbo. Are we up here? I'm waiting for someone to come up and interrupt me. Seems to be common practice here. Well, my remarks today are intended to create a context for the biennial budget proposal we will present to you shortly. As you will soon see, the budget request is based on a new vision. My vision, to be clear, of the UW system's role and purpose. Hopefully, each of you will embrace this vision, enabling it to become a shared vision, our vision. Nice vision, huh? It's a vision that I've shared with the chancellors and discussed with many of you. It's a vision that's been influenced by the many conversations I've had with Wisconsinites over the last 6 months. It's a vision that capitalizes on the UW system's power and potential to provide transformative change. Change that improves the social and economic well-being of our state, and in the process, elevates Wisconsin's influence around the globe. Yes, it has that much potential. To give us a common understanding, I will share a brief history of higher education systems, why they were created, and contrast that to what is needed today and in the new economy. To conceive of a new system, we need to agree upon an operational framework while outlining some guiding principles within which it will operate. Even though we have not completed our strategic planning process, I have clearly heard one consistent request of the university. The university's priorities should be more tightly aligned with the needs of the state. I want to repeat that. The university's priorities should be more tightly aligned with the needs of the state. Our biennial budget request will reflect that focus. So let me start with a brief history, and relevant history, I hope, of higher education systems, specifically the conditions and purposes that led to their creation. Following World War II, the GI Bill helped to create explosive demand for post-secondary education. I don't know about you, but I remember as a student in the 60s, there were still Quonset huts on a number of campuses. In fact, I had a class in one of them. Most of those are gone now. College enrollment swelled, not just because of the GI Bill and veterans coming back, but for many reasons. This growth prompted state policymakers to look for ways to effectively manage and control their investment of public resources. In many states, the answer was to create a system of higher education with central administration and a citizen board to manage things. Some of those are reflected here on the screen. Currently, there are 49 multi-campus systems operating in 37 states. Nearly 75% of all students attending four-year public colleges and universities are part of a university system. Why? Why were systems created? Why were they needed? In what context? And for what purpose? While there may be more reasons, the three main reasons were to control and manage enrollment growth. Someone's got to keep this under control. To avoid unnecessary duplication of programs and facilities, managing those resources, and of course, to find ways to equitably allocate resources. Since systems were created for the purpose of managing and controlling growth, it's understandable and entirely appropriate that they would tend to be more functionally focused rather than strategically focused, have a stronger internal perspective more than an external one, be more focused on management and processes, less on leadership, emphasize their internal communications between each other and the stakeholders rather than setting the agenda. Perhaps the most often cited concern about systems is their focus on balancing the interest of institutional members, trying to keep everyone happy. As a consequence, sometimes, not all the time, sometimes systems have not been as attentive to some stakeholder needs, like the state, as they should have been. It is clear that systems need to adjust. Demographics are different. Demographics are our destiny. We have an aging population, fewer working age adults, fewer high school graduates, and the migration rate in and out of the state is not very favorable for working age adults. In addition, state budgets are pressed from all sides, and public higher education all over the country is challenged to secure adequate funds. It is clear. It is clear. We can no longer just be organized as a system. We must perform as a system. In the midst of all this, politicians and the public are asking us to do more. They want us, systems and member institutions, to be more strategic, more nimble, more responsive, more entrepreneurial, more accountable, more efficient, and more flexible, and if I could think of a few more, I'd list them. Most often they are speaking about higher education in general. However, it is important to note that individual institutions within a system tend to actually be better at this than the system itself. Remember, systems were created primarily to serve a different role, to manage and to control things, not to be innovative or entrepreneurial. That wasn't what they were intended to do. Hence the oft-noted tension between systems and institutions within that system. So we must ask the question, can higher education systems be transformed to better serve all their stakeholders? Yes, I think they can. And furthermore, they must. I believe we must adapt, we must change. It is no longer enough merely to be organized as a system of universities. We must also perform in that fashion, leveraging the collective power of universities in ways that significantly add value and produce results for all of our stakeholders. Today I will propose a new vision for the University of Wisconsin system But before I do, let me provide a framework for what I believe a future system of higher education should be built around. I will also share some critical guiding principles under which such a system should operate. First, the framework. There are three components. First, strategic leadership, a statewide vision of the system's destination. Second, strategic management, the administrative operations that allow us to achieve efficiencies and effectiveness. Third, strategic responsibility, the traditional management and control functions required by the state to offer accountability to the people who fund us. Let's first look at leadership. The higher education system of the future will have a statewide vision. It will be more future-oriented. It will inform and prepare the state regarding future needs. It will guide the state into a more prosperous future. In the future, I hope we're telling legislators and the governor and others where they need to be in 10 years, rather than in the other way around. It will also provide an important analytical function. It will use predictive analytics or data science to improve management and decision-making for the state, for its member institutions, and perhaps most importantly, for students. It will be proficient at compiling data, mining data, and converting that data into useful information. Second, managing operations from a statewide perspective should open opportunities for sharing or combining services. We should be able to share more backroom operations to achieve efficiencies and to redirect those savings into the classroom or the research lab. Additionally, we need a more synchronous and coordinated way of advocating for the university. We have not realized our full potential in this arena. Of course, we also need to establish a stronger partnership with the business community. We need their support in order for both of us to be successful. The system of the future will also foster greater collaboration while freeing institutions to focus on their core missions. Finally, we do have some statutory and governance responsibilities. Processes, controls, and accountability are all part of our current responsibilities. The state has assigned this to the system and to the board. Most of these responsibilities center on the traditional management and control areas we've done for many years. The system of the future will place greater emphasis on performance within these responsibilities. What will be measured, how it will be measured, when it will be measured, and why it is needed. Clear and understandable metrics will guide effective evaluation of performance processes. Of course, policy development is one of the primary responsibilities of the Board of Regents. But those policies must value and even reward diversity of institutions, or we will lose our ability to serve the broader needs of the state. The state needs many different types of institutions. These three components should make up the framework for a new system of higher education: strategic leadership, strategic management, and strategic responsibilities. Can this framework effectively be put into action to form a new, more engaged future system? I firmly believe it can, especially if the system operates within that framework in accordance with the following three guiding principles. First, the system must add value to the state and to the institutions. Value as determined not just by one or the other, but by both, the state and the institutions. To be effective, the system must carefully orchestrate that balance. Secondly, one size does not fit all. Policies and practices that make us all look alike will destroy our strength if we aren't vigilant. There will always be a tendency toward conformity within systems. Legislators and the public often look for simple, common metrics to measure all institutions. We all do. At times, those may be very appropriate. Managing and controlling is always easier when one uses the same yardstick. However, it is and always will be important for systems to guard against that tendency. My final guiding principle is all about collective impact. Aristotle noted that when pieces come together, the whole should be greater than the sum of its parts. That axiom is carried to the next level through collective impact. Let me spend just a moment on the abstract concept of collective impact and the incredible opportunity it offers systems. The abstract concept of collective impact is the alignment of units in a focused, laser-like fashion on a common goal, as shown along the right side of this graphic. Most of the time, institutions function as individual entities in an isolated fashion, and sometimes in a cumulative manner. That is entirely appropriate and as it should be. You want institutions and entities to do that. It's on select occasions when you need a focus and align effort, it's important to shift to the right. We call that collective impact. And as they would say in, I forgot the name of the show, Bazinga. What's that guy's name anyway? You guys don't watch television? Systems are ideal for Bazinga. That wasn't funny either, I guess. For collective impact, the ability to mutually reinforce a linear action, focused laser-like on a common agreed-upon goal. It is not easy to do. Given some of the challenges we face, we will need to function collectively to achieve the desired impact our students, our faculty, our staff, our communities, our businesses, our state, and yes, even our world demand. Perhaps the greatest challenge facing Wisconsin and many other states is the creation of jobs. Wisconsin is about in the middle of states in job growth. However, just creating jobs is not enough. We need to create high-impact jobs, jobs that increase personal growth, quality of life, and social and economic opportunity, but perhaps most importantly, jobs that create other jobs. I've been hearing this message everywhere I go. We heard it today, twice. My ears perked up. Employers are telling me and you they have job openings they cannot fill and positions for which they cannot find qualified applicants. What? Employers aren't the only ones claiming that a significant number of jobs are going unfilled. Manpower's recent report documents this shortage very effectively. We have a talent gap, and that gap is what's holding back our economy. To grow our economy badly needs more high-impact jobs. When Jeffrey Immelt addressed the board, he encouraged us to double the number of engineers we graduate for just that reason. He was encouraging us to create high-impact talent for the needed high-impact jobs. What does high-impact talent mean to an economy, one only has to look at Stanford and the Silicon Valley, or North Carolina's Research Triangle, or Boston's 128 Corridor, and right here in Wisconsin, Madison's Research Park, or Milwaukee's Innovation Park, or Stout's Technology Park, or Whitewater's Innovation Center, River Falls Center for Innovation and Business Development, and Oshkosh's New Business Accelerator and their centers as well. I could keep on listing these high-impact talent clusters, creating not just talent, but ideas that continue to fuel the state's economy in good times and in bad times. Therefore, I believe the UW system needs to boldly proclaim that from this day forward, our priority will be to develop the talent and ideas that raise Wisconsin's prosperity and serve the world. Let me repeat that. From this day forward, our priority will be to develop the talent and ideas that raise Wisconsin's prosperity and serve the world. The UW system possesses the human and capital resources to be a powerful catalyst, one capable of truly transforming the state's societal and economic conditions in ways that benefit all the people of Wisconsin, even around the world. All UW institutions can and will participate in this kind of a commitment. Academically, we will broaden the talent base on which employers and entrepreneurs depend through our emphasis on STEM, on the arts and humanities, and on professional programs. Of course, in many ways, we already are a key economic engine within the state, but we can do more. Today, we are organized as a system, but we don't always perform as a system. We seldom achieve collective impact. Only the University of Wisconsin can solve some of these problems, these challenges. We can drive this change. Those are the areas where we need to have collective impact and bring about positive change. Therefore, I am proposing that our biennial budget request focus on the development of talent, high-impact talent. We're calling it the Talent Development Initiative. It has three interrelated components: the talent path, the talent infrastructure, and the talent-based economy. In a moment, David Miller will explain this plan in greater detail. But before he does, let me provide an overview of how these components are central to the needs of Wisconsin. First, the talent path. The talent path is essential because we face some serious challenges getting more qualified students into and through the educational pipeline. The state's population is aging, which means fewer working-age adults are available to meet the demand as well as fulfill the potential. We are experiencing a declining number of students entering and graduating from high school, and an outmigration of working-age adults all reflect Wisconsin's changing demography. Those demographic changes foreshadow our destiny, unless we act to influence them. Thus, we must get more students successfully through K-12 and ready for college. Tomorrow, I will share some very aggressive goals in partnership with our K-12 colleagues, goals that reflect the importance of this effort. It also means getting high school students to jumpstart their college careers by taking college-level courses while still in high school. You heard some of that this morning, in particular the CAP program here at Oshkosh. Once students are on our campuses, we must work hard to help them succeed. That requires effective retention strategies, transferability options, and connecting them to the world outside the university through high-impact practices, such as internships. You heard some of that. And undergraduate research opportunities, and there are several more. Another area of attention, of course, will be those who are already working, the 750,000 plus of them, the working age adults in Wisconsin with some level of college, but who, for a variety of reasons, never finished. The UW Flex option and our UW online programs need to be expanded to better serve those individuals. We need them all if this economy needs to grow. Secondly, we need to build our talent infrastructure. But before we do, we need to better understand where and what is needed. We often aggregate numbers, and in doing so, we conceal the differences hidden in regions or local communities. They aren't all the same. Eau Claire may need welders. Oshkosh may need something different. Once we better understand the needs, we need to invest in building these critically important, high-impact, talent-creating programs. At Madison, for example, approximately 58% of all faculty teach STEM-related courses. That number hasn't changed in over 14 years, even though the student and employer demand for those courses and those programs has increased significantly. We need resources. We must produce more high-impact talent in these critically important fields by growing this infrastructure so that we can directly impact the future of this state, the nation, and, yes, the world. And third, we need to continue building a talent-based economy. This is the continuation of the economic development incentive grants initiated last year. Launching and growing businesses that require high-impact talent is needed within the new economy, a healthy, thriving, job-producing economy. Well, you will see each of these components of the Talent Development Initiative in our proposed biennial budget request. In summary, I've proposed a broad yet focused vision for the University of Wisconsin system, and I've offered a biennial budget request directly tied to that vision. We're early in this strategic planning process. However, I felt it was important to share my vision at this point, one crafted in consultation with board leadership, the chancellors, business leaders, faculty and staff, students, in conversations with folks from all around the state. So I asked the board, the chancellors, and our faculty and staff, as well as the greater University of Wisconsin community, to help me refine and implement this vision into one that we can all share and advance. A vision that moves us, that challenges us to think big, that may even scare us because we don't know if we can do it. A vision that helps us build a new University of Wisconsin system, a system for the future. One that performs as a system, that has collective impact where it's needed, that adds value to the institutions and to the state, that values the diversity of institutions and is respected and admired in Wisconsin and throughout the world, not just as the University of Wisconsin, but also as the University for Wisconsin. Thank you. And now I'd like to ask Senior Vice President David Miller to brief you on the specifics in the biennial budget request. David?
Thank you. Greetings, everyone. At previous board meetings in February, April, and June, we discussed planning for the 2015-17 biennial budget conceptually. I won't repeat those points here, but rather get to the point with the specific recommendations. This discussion will follow the items contained in Resolution 5. Upon completion of this, we will be seeking your vote of support. I'll discuss the dollars involved and the funding concepts to implement the vision that President Cross just articulated for the biennial budget. First, the Talent Development Initiative is composed of 3 strategies that President Cross mentioned. The Talent Path would require $15.4 million in new state funding. The Talent Infrastructure would leverage $42.3 million in university funds to be reallocated for these purposes, and $57 million in new state funding. And finally, the talent-based economy would require $22.5 million in one-time but new state funding. And I'll say more about each of those in just a moment. Resolution 5 also contains performance measures. These are requested by the Department of Administration to be included in each agency's budget submission. We'll touch on those briefly. And number 3 also includes statutory language changes we will discuss. And finally, the resolution concludes with authorizing the President and his team to work with the Department of Administration to determine and fund standard budget adjustments or costs to continue. For a moment, maybe briefly review the impact of the 2013-15 biennial budget. Because standard budget adjustments include the presumption of tuition support for those costs, the tuition freeze for 2 years resulted in fixed cost increases that had to be covered from the existing tuition base without the increased tuition to support them. That created a $27.3 million ongoing deficit of cost that had to be covered continually. Additionally, the 13-15 budget included a base reduction of $32.8 million, which institutions had to manage. Our immediate management steps included developing cash balance policies, which have now been approved by this board and the legislature, about which we will report to this board in October and submit a new annual cash balance management report to the legislature. We also increased transparency and accountability of balances and created new financial reporting measures that are reported to this board quarterly. We also have begun drawing down balances to cover these costs on a one-time basis. The prevailing question about the biennial budget is and will continue to be, why do we need new state funding? Can't balances cover the programs for which we are seeking new funding? A closer look at the impact of the 13-15 budget will show that the $32.8 million base reduction from the previous year's base, if we look at FY13 as the base year, is a reduction in state support that lowers your base each and every year thereafter. So you can reallocate those costs, but you have to continue with the lowered funding level in perpetuity. Here, I've added the fixed cost increases that were charged to tuition while tuition was frozen. The first year, fiscal year 14, was $17.2 million, and an additional $10 million made that deficit $27.3 million that I mentioned a moment ago in this current fiscal year. The numbers for 15-16 and 16-17 are projections based on the cost to continue structure of the current biennium. So if the same types of costs were required to be covered in the coming biennium under an additional 2-year tuition freeze, we will see additional cost to be funded from existing tuition that would raise the deficit to $41.7 million in fiscal year 16 and $56.7 million in fiscal year 17. It's a projection at this point. Here, I've added the combination of the base cut and then the additional lost tuition each year. So the amount the institutions have had to deal with this biennium, $50 million the first year, $60 million the second year, and a projected $74.5 million and $89.5 million respectively in the coming 2 years if the same structure holds. Those numbers, remember that line. We're going to look at it a couple of different ways in just a moment. Balances can play a role in managing these funding reductions, and in fact have played a role. Each institution has to determine how it will manage the lost revenue. Some institutions are using one-time balances to offset lost revenue temporarily in combination with actual program operations cuts. Was not making all of their share of the $32.8 million base cut immediately in the first year, using some balance to draw that down, some cuts to manage a rational approach. However, looking at 15-16 and 16-17, let me preface this by saying this is an illustration of how balances are used, not based on dollars that institutions have actually allocated, because I don't have that information yet. But the illustration holds because as you draw down balances, and in enrollment challenges and tuition frozen, you are eliminating the ability to recur that revenue, so it's an actual drawdown of balances. So I've drawn the line up in 15-16, the line illustrating, the red line, about how much of the $50 million in fiscal year 14 could be covered by a balance. So I've shaded that in, looking at a partial use of covering this biennium's reductions with balances and how much may be covered by actual reductions. Going forward, as balances decline, smaller balances are available to cover a growing deficit. So balances can only play a limited role in covering these costs in a temporary way. Now a bit about the actual funding request. This is, let me go to this one. While I'm still talking about balances and funding, would like to talk about how the ongoing reductions compare to new funding. Because I talked about a fiscal year 17 deficit of $89 million. A really quick way to think about that, someone might think, oh, when you're asking for $95 million, isn't that a wash? No, not at all. And here's why. The familiar numbers in the red below the line, escalating deficits. The funding we're requesting for one-time additional talent-based economy, another round of economic development incentive grants, is represented here in blue above the line of $11.5 million in each of the next 2 fiscal years. That would be one-time money dedicated solely to that grant program, so those dollars can't in any way help you manage the cuts that you're trying to manage. In addition, there's $6.4 million in the first year for the Talent Development Initiative to grow academic programs in a targeted way, but those funds are also dedicated toward those specific initiatives. So those dollars would be GPR based, but it wouldn't help you manage the previous losses or the tuition freeze. The same of the green bar, $39 million in 16-17, the same way that would be dedicated, wouldn't help reduce the deficit. There is a piece here that would help, if funded, manage the deficit, and that is in the second year, we're requesting $27.3 million to replace the cost of the tuition freeze from the current biennium, not the next biennium, but the current biennium. It's $27.3 million. If that were funded, that would actually eliminate $27.3 million of the projected $89 million deficit, leaving the deficit that year at $62 million. Now, there we go. So the components of the Building the Talent path include expanding the course options program to increase enrollments in that highly valuable program by 50% in the second year of the biennium, developmental or remedial education. The point of this initiative is to come up with more effective ways to address student needs upon entering their first year of college that are alternatives to a full semester or full year of remediation. We need to do pilot programs to shorten that time. Perhaps a student only needs a short refresher instead of spending a semester paying tuition, delaying time to degree, and so forth. Building the transfer information system that involves higher education throughout the state to be more effective, UW Flex option with which you're familiar. The talent market would develop a computer-based system to better match graduates with employers and enhancing diversity. The request here is the $6.4 million in the first year I mentioned a moment ago and $9 million in the second year for $15.4 million over the biennium, and this would be new GPR base. The next component or strategy is building the talent infrastructure. It increases, as President Cross described, increases degrees in high-demand fields, increases opportunities for students, incentivizes attracting and retraining students in high-demand fields, and the retention and recruitment of faculty in high-demand fields. Okay. And next. Are you doing that for me and I'm just kind of pretending to use this? I thought that might be happening. That's cool. That's fine. I'll just hold it up and then you'll know. Go ahead, please. Focusing on 6 industries critical to Wisconsin's economy. This request would leverage $15 million of existing university funds from our carry-forward balances to start programs in the first year to leverage $30 million of base and ongoing funding in the second year to create programs that President Cross and I have described, targeting, these are among the fields. These are selected and highlighted in your materials because these 6 fields make up 50% of Wisconsin's GDP, and several of which are also reporting, according to studies, labor studies, significant shortage in talent and leadership. The consequences of shortages of skilled talent in the workforce include businesses leaving the state to relocate to where the talent resides, rather than expensive relocation of in-migration of the same. This ongoing funding would be allocated based on proposals from each institution. That's a critical factor. It would not be distributed on a formulaic percentage of your budget basis. It is intended that every institution would participate, but would participate by submitting proposals for evaluation for use of the funds. The second portion of the talent infrastructure is the $27.3 million that we're calling support for students, because if this isn't funded, we're really continuing to reallocate existing tuition to cover those fixed costs that are the tuition portion historically of state-imposed fixed cost. The talent-based economy is Economic Development Incentive Grants 2.0, with which this board is very familiar because these are really managed by the READY Committee. Again, this would be one-time funding. You may recall that we proposed this in the last budget, but after the statewide discussion of balances, we were asked to reallocate the $22.5 million for this initiative in the last budget. We would like the state to fund this, and it's one-time money, not base building, in the next budget. And that's $11.25 million per year. Okay? Performance measures, these are tried and true measures with which this board is very familiar because you see these in our accountability reports. They are what we would include that the administration would use to publish as our agency's performance measures in the executive budget, focusing on undergraduate degrees, our participation rate, meaning participation of high school graduates going on to the university, the retention rate and graduation rate. And if you would like more details about those numbers, rather than go into them here, they're on pages C1 through C4 of your budget materials. Proposed statutory changes focus on compensation. We had a good discussion in committee this morning about compensation after Chancellor Wells' presentation to the Business and Finance Committee. It was highlighted that the board, the chancellors, do not currently have the ability to award even base reallocated compensation on merit. Performance is a factor when compensation reallocation is made because one can't receive a market adjustment unless you have satisfactory performance, but you can't base a compensation adjustment solely on merit. We would like to add the word merit to the permissible reasons for which the board, which is delegated to the chancellors, can award base resources to additional compensation for employees. In addition, we would like to once again ask the legislature and the governor to approve allowing the Board of Regents to set university-wide pay plan. This was included in the governor's last budget and was one of the items that was not forwarded through the legislative process. However, one caveat, we want to ensure that university employees continue to share in the statewide pay plan that the legislature makes available through the compensation reserve for all state employees. So we would receive no less than that in funding. The board's authority would be for above and beyond that. We would also like to request streamlining certain reports that are referred to in your documents, and we would like to, we will continue to work with the governor and legislature on some further minor administrative flexibilities that create efficiency. The standard budget adjustment language, which is the last item in the resolution, does authorize the president to negotiate with the Department of Administration on these. These are utility costs, which are generally split funded from traditionally a tuition share, which we hope the state will fund all of if there is a tuition freeze again that we know about in advance. Compensation, the state share of compensation comes through the compensation reserve, but other standard budget adjustments include debt service that is calculated by the Department of Administration and put into our budget when the governor's budget is introduced. So that brings us full circle back to the resolution that is before you. Thank you.
Before we move into discussion and recommendations, I want to thank Ray and his team for an outstanding job of not only putting it together, but briefing all of us, working with the governor's office, DOA, and legislative leaders and staff. We are in a critical time for the university's future, and I feel very strongly that Ray has outlined a conceptual vision and a budget that addresses the pressing needs of the system and the state, as well as the unique challenges and opportunities that exist. I'm very much looking forward to the strategic planning process that Ray will be initiating and to all of your input and involvement. So with that, I will open it up for questions, comments. Regent Higgins.
Thank you, Regent Falbo. Under building the talent path, we have 6 different categories, beginning with course options. And the smallest of them is diversity at $0.7 million, $700,000. And I realize that is relatively small in terms of the total numbers we're talking about. But I am not sure what we mean by diversity. I asked that question at a meeting almost 2 years ago, and the answer I got was, well, diversity is any difference between human beings. That doesn't seem to me very specific in terms of being able to measure your impact and outcomes from $700,000 of additional money, because we're already spending a certain amount of money, though we don't know how much, on each campus on diversity. So could you have somebody explain it to me?
I could. Would you explain it to him?
Thank you, President Felbo. If you look at, philosophically, you look at the Milwaukee region right now, I think there are 2 zip codes for 55% of the African American males are unemployed. And you ask yourself the question, I think this is the very first year, this fall, starting in September, when the number of students enrolled in public higher education in the United States as a minority majority. White Americans are 49.8% of the enrolled in high school population this year, this coming fall. If we want this economy to grow beyond the 3.3% it's averaged for the last 10 years, we have to bring that element of our population into this. And this is a part of that. And I think tomorrow we're having a conversation about the question you asked earlier about how do we do that? What are we spending on it? Is it working? All great questions, because we can't fail any longer. We don't have a choice. So accountability has to be on the table. And it's such an important issue that we have to all own this. So I appreciate the pressure and the urgency that this has prompted. We cannot fail at this.
Thank you, President Cross. I checked with Associate Vice President Frida Harris, the budget director, who reminded me that the dollars are based on growth in the program, which reminds me, the other day I read in the Wall Street Journal that among American public high schools this fall, we will for the first time have a majority of non-white students attending public schools across the country. It's a growing population, so these dollars are specifically looking at existing programs, but growth, significant growth in these programs.
Regent Bailey.
President Cross, by September 15th, the university and all state agencies are required to submit our budget proposal. This is a tremendous budget proposal, and I really like what you did, but the message that state agencies received was they're to be flat. And although this is a great proposal, just help me reconcile the budget request versus the message.
It is true, I think, that all state agencies were instructed to prepare a flat budget request, which is due by September 15th. We've been almost every week meeting with the governor's office, with legislators, having this conversation. It's one of those things where we've been preparing them, et cetera. But, and as you can see by some of the press, I believe we are inviting the conversation. And what you're hearing from legislators, well, we'll take a look at this. We're interested in the conversation. In fact, the governor's office said the same thing. I think it's important that we make our case. This economy cannot grow any faster without more talent. It just cannot grow. Now, the job vacancies all across this country are known in state after state, and we've talked about those, and we keep hearing these anecdotal stories about I can't hire, I can't find, I can't fill, can't get qualified applicants, or I could grow this business. We keep hearing all over the country, and I hear it all the time. That's our job. I, therefore, think this is the key to helping to accelerate the growth in this state. The state of Wisconsin is about 3.3% annually over the last 10 years. Minnesota is about 3.5. North Dakota is about 8.0. They have other problems. They are North Dakota, remember? Well, but my point is that the growth of the economy is on our shoulders. Communicating that and helping people to understand that, I think, is our job. Now, I'm putting this forward. I think it's the answer. I'm willing to engage in that conversation any day, because I think it's the right thing to do. I think it is an investment in the future of this state, period. And I'm willing to listen to changes or suggestions, but we're proposing to play a major role in helping to focus the energy of the system on the needs of the state and align our resources to help meet those needs, because that's, we think, the best way to improve this economy. So that's a broad answer, John, but I welcome the opportunity to engage in that conversation. And even some of our most vocal critics have said, we're looking forward to having that conversation, and I appreciate that.
Regent Whitburn.
Do you want to go ahead, Virginia?
I would, because
okay.
In response to this. That's a good question, Regent Bailey. However, there are only a few government agencies that have the capacity to grow the state's economy. We're one of them. And I'm hopeful, particularly with the objective that we have in this particular budget, I'm hoping that the legislature can understand that this is in the state's best interest. And the second piece of that is I'm hopeful that we will understand that this is in the state's best interest. It's an incumbent upon us to promote that growth.
Regent Whitburn.
A lot of focus in the last year or so on reserves carry forward. The number had increased over a period of time with not a lot of public focus. Now more focus. We finished fiscal 13 with about $1 billion in unrestricted assets. The board was told in the April meeting that as we were moving toward the end of fiscal 14, the number would reach $1.25 billion. And as we've proceeded now through fiscal 15, we're spending down reserves some. How should the board think about our expected anticipated reserve position if this budget is ultimately approved as submitted, assuming expected enrollments, and understanding the parameters of comfort within the legislature on an ongoing basis with regard to our reserves? Are we in the right ballpark as we project ahead through the end of fiscal 17?
Thank you, Regent Whitburn. We will provide a highly detailed report to this board in October, which of course is still within the formulation period of the budget. I think that report is critical into how this budget request is ultimately viewed. Looking at FY13, when institutions categorized by the LAB categories their balances for us, which we presented in April, about 3.5% of balances at that time were uncommitted. We know that's going to be a significantly less amount for fiscal year 14. In June, we presented a report to the board that, well, in the annual budget, in which we estimated that fiscal year 14 would end at a total of $917 million. We did not, for fiscal year 14, do the exercise of how much of that was committed because we were working through the definitions with LAB and so forth. So in October, we're going to see how much of that is really committed by auditable definitions. So the numbers I'm talking about reallocating to cover lost tuition and base reductions isn't free money. It comes from reallocating from plans the institutions had for that funding that they now have to change the direction of the institution to refocus to cover fixed cost. So that's the perspective I would like, I don't mean to speak for you, President Cross, to view those balances. If the documentation by auditable standards shows they are committed for specific purposes, then the only way you can free them up to cover fixed cost increases of a tuition freeze is by changing your direction. And that is not the same as a base cut, but it's very close. I think for the October report is going to be very, very close to the projection we made in June in terms of dollars.
Regent Mueller?
Just to follow up, may I? There's no question, Regent Whitburn, if we can't answer that question well, we will have extreme difficulty with this request. There's no question. We have to answer that well. And that's why we're spending hours analyzing, questioning, challenging every item that's obligated, planned, designated, or identified in reserves. Yeah, we are really working at that. And I think we're making great progress, and I would like to compliment the CBOs on the campuses and David's team. That's such an important, crucial piece. I do believe it's come down, and I have made the argument to legislator after legislator that you don't want that to come down fast. You want that to come down wisely. Otherwise, it would reveal perhaps an even greater problem, that we're spending it without plans.
Regent Mueller. Regent Mueller and then Regent Baskin.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have questions in all three categories, but let me begin with the first one on the operating budget as proposed in the resolution. Typically with budget requests of this magnitude, there's a position increase involved as well. And there are no new positions discussed in the narrative. Are you going to implement this talent initiative with existing staff and reallocating staff, or will there be new positions requested?
We're not requesting new positions, right?
We are not requesting new positions. One of the things that was included in previous biennial budgets was that the university would no longer have to be included in state position counts going forward after the 2015-17 biennium began. So there isn't a requirement that we do that. So it's not included in there. The assumption is that we would need to have new positions, though, in order to implement new programs, because we would have to hire more staff to do that.
Do you have an estimate of that time?
No, we don't, because the piece that is most important here, that would be most sizable, is the one that's related to the grants program, which would be determined by what the proposals are from the institutions and what new programs they're creating, and we don't have that information at this point.
Just a question, excuse me, on clarification, Frida. You're not suggesting that we're not bound by a state FTE authorized count, are you?
Yes, I am.
So we're free from...
As of July 15, 2015. Okay. I mean, July 1st, 2015, sorry.
Okay.
I'm just a little uneasy about that, not surprisingly, because additional staff will add to our cost to continue budget. I hope that in the future we'll have a better idea, if this plan moves forward, how many new positions or reallocated positions will be deployed. Let me ask another question, if I may, related to the first part. On the operating budget, I went back and looked at the last biennial budget to see what that cost to continue piece cost, because we don't have that in front of us yet. It's just simply not ready, and that was about $20 million in general purpose revenue in the last biennium. Yes.
No, not the cost to continue.
That was the standard budget adjustment, as documented in the Legislative Fiscal Bureau document. And so I just want to make it clear that we're asking for this amount. This is just for information. We have $95.2 million in general purpose revenue for the talent initiative as described by you, and then an additional unspecified amount, I think maybe $25 million general purpose revenue, that we'll be asking the governor and the legislature for. So I just want to get those numbers out there, because if you look at the resolution that we have to vote on shortly, it says $95.2 million biennially in GPR/tuition. And I'm being technical here, but really it's more than that. You have told us there's about $42.3 million, did I have that right, in tuition, university funds, and $95.2 million in GPR. I keep talking about this because there's always going to be a laser focus on the general purpose revenue part of any purpose revenue of any budget request, and I just want to be clear at what we're looking at.
Just a comment, just so I make sure I understand it, Regent Mueller. Yes, we are asking for costs to continue funds. Those will be negotiated later. They're not listed specifically in amounts. I'm not exactly sure where the 20 is, for what year and what that piece is. I think we're estimating the overall cost of over the biennium for the next 15-17, and it's way early, but I think it's somewhere in the neighborhood of about $104 million. So I'm not exactly sure what the 20 is, Jan, but that may be the portion that was tuition focused.
That was the portion that was general purpose revenue.
Is that over a biennium or 1 year?
Over a biennium.
Okay. Do you know what that is?
Yes. What you're referring to is the cost of fringe benefits, and there was some funding related to discretionary compensation adjustments as well. We don't have any estimates that we can provide right now. We're still working with the Department of Administration to narrow down what the biggest piece of this is, which is the fringe benefit costs. And the costs of that will be costs that are associated with all state agencies. It happens for all state agencies, and we really don't have any control over what those numbers are going to be. So that's why in this piece it was specifically saying that could be delegated to President Cross for us to work through with the Department of Administration, because they'll tell us and work with us on what the rate is that we have to build in and what the amounts are for that. Again, it's at this point, we don't even know yet what the fringe benefit percentage is that we need to be working for. It hasn't been provided to state agencies yet by the Department of Administration, and once it does, we'll be providing a report in October.
Just a second, Frida, but to your point, if I understand it correctly, so now I understand what the 20 is, okay. If we add staff, and we will, that's part of the talent, that's what the talent infrastructure is about. The cost of that, the fringe cost, the cost to continue in the future, the quicker we know what those numbers are, that'll help us better understand future operational costs, because that will need to be explained carefully. And that's what you're saying, and that's good counsel. Thanks.
But just to clarify as well, the total amount that we're asking for is $30 million. That will have to include the fringe benefit costs associated with any new staff. So it won't be an additional obligation for the state to pick up. It will be part of the overall funding that is requested there, because we have to cover those costs when we add staff.
Thank you. These questions are easier. On the performance measures, which is also part of this motion, I noticed that in other years there were institution-specific performance measures. Will that be in or out of the 15-17 biennial budget performance measures?
These are similar to the biennium before last. The reason last biennium they were institution-specific, those performance measures were actually a significant part of the funding request for new money. That was a specific initiative, so we folded institution-specific performance measures was part of the request for new state funding on an institutional basis. So last biennium was different. Biennium before last and the one before that, they were, as presented here, system-wide and generally 4 key measures. That was a unique situation.
If needed, obviously, if policymakers asked, you would be able to provide that. Obviously.
These are all published in our accountability report. These are the core things that, of course, every institution maintains and publishes data on, of course. Yes.
One quick follow-up, if I may. You talk about increasing undergraduate degrees, and you certainly talked about that, President Cross. But I see in the technical wording that we would be counting associate degrees as well. And I didn't think we used the associate degrees in our count of undergraduate degrees in other years. Am I incorrect?
I think I would turn to Heather on that one, Heather Kim. And there was a change made in how we do reporting, but Heather certainly can respond to that.
Heather, you're going to come up. Including associate degrees was part of the growth agenda that sought for the 80,000 increase. That was an addition at that time.
So we have been counting associate degree as part of undergraduate degrees under the growth agenda, and we are currently continuing that practice. So 80,000 goal included associate degree as well as bachelor's degrees, but it does not include graduate level.
I thought you were going to ask this question, Jan, which I think is very good. These are the metrics that the state requires of us. That's why they're here. But if we're going to focus on high-impact talent and the addition of that, we will be measuring very closely specific creation of new graduates in specific majors and things of that nature. For instance, engineering or nursing, we'll be looking at that very narrowly. So even though that's not required in this, but in the biennial budget, this is what's required. but we will be doing the other.
Thank you.
Just
Regent
sorry,
Vasquez?
one comment.
Okay.
These specific measures are not required by the department.
They're not?
That we're required to have and submit metrics. These are the ones that we've been using and have selected. I'm sorry. They require that we have something. We chose the something. Sorry.
David, debt service, not in these numbers, that's another add-on. Do we have a feel for the parameters of it?
We do. And in Associate Vice President Rowe's presentation, we've included debt service estimates for the capital budget.
Regent Farrell.
Thank you. I plan to support this, so let me start by saying that. Realizing it's in its developmental stages yet, and that October is another time. Okay. In October, when we get this clearer view of where I keep calling them the pots of money are, that's a terrible way to refer, the surpluses, and how we are redefining those amounts of money here, there, and everywhere, and what that means. In October, when you make that presentation to us, I guess, are we going to hear will there be a clear picture of how this new attitude and pressure is affecting all our campuses? Because it is very different in different campuses. And I want to know who's scraping the bottom of the barrel. I want to know, not because of their fault, maybe because of their earlier care in tight budgets. I mean, we went through that with, the spending limits on K-12 schools, when the ones who always spent carefully suddenly had nowhere to go with their budgets because they were left in holding the bag, more or less, empty bag. So I guess I would like that concern, or I'd like to be able to hear some answers to that in October, so that we have a clear picture. The other issue that I would like to express real continuing ongoing concern about is our new language, that we don't have remedial education anymore. We have developmental education. You can't make a silk purse out of a sow's ear. It is remedial. And it is remedial because the kids aren't ready. And then you begin to ask, why aren't they ready in math and language especially? Well, I picked up the paper yesterday, and here's more of the same. Second in the country in ACT scores, but if you really drill down into those scores, they're not ready for college in math or English in Wisconsin. Though we're the #2 in the country, it scares the wits out of me where the rest of the country is, realizing we're talking about some very narrow margins of difference here. So I guess my concern, and some of you with responsibility for it have already heard it from me, I'm not satisfied, and I'm very concerned that we don't have our other regent here today, because I think there still is that need. The end product of the K-12 system that our institutions get are having to deal with the end product. They're not having a true reverse conversation and say, what can we do together to solve this? And I think that is beginning to be kind of dealt with. I looked at the material that provided the pre-test to us in math. Don't ask me if I was willing to take it. I'd really be one of those non-traditional students that would need some reminder of formulas and what have you for area of triangles and all. But the point is, I'm not satisfied with this. So I'm not going to stand here and vote no, but I'm kind of saying that without doing it. I don't think we're going the right place with developmental education. I know we're trying. I appreciate that and the effort that's been made. I appreciate David Ward and what he's been charged with and is doing, but I'm not happy. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. Is there a motion?
I have a question.
Okay.
And just for context, you said 104 million. Were you talking about cost to continue? What?
Yeah, I was talking about compensation increase, benefits. I was talking about including the tuition portion. The whole. I was clear the whole thing.
I understand. Secondly, for context, 1% of tuition used to be 7 million. What is it today? 8 million. Yeah. And out-of-state tuition total?
total revenue
Right.
from out-of-state tuition? I don't know off the top of my head.
Well,
I'm sorry.
10 million? Mostly Madison, isn't it?
1% increase, I think, when we looked at the non-res tuition, I think 1% increase in non-res tuition was something around 2 million, 2.5, something like that, yeah. Total for all institutions.
I hope at some point we will have a collegial discussion about why we're not raising out-of-state tuition.
Oh, I think you can bet. I think you can bet we will.
Yes, the plan is.
And there's
Yes,
somebody
that
at
is
the
the
table
plan.
over there who will make sure that we will. A couple people, as a matter of fact. I'd entertain a motion for resolution agenda item 5.
So moved.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion or comments or questions? All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Now we'll move to the capital budget request, which is included in the 2015-17 biennial budget request. Associate Vice President Alex Rowe is here to walk us through the specifics. Alex.
So in your packet, you're going to see the resolution, the background materials which delineate the process, the 2015-17 major project requests recommendation, the 6-year GFSB plan, and then you'll see brief descriptions of each of the major projects and programs that are included within the budget. So in summary, and this is a two-part, we must submit, as I think I've informed you before, a 6-year plan to the legislature as part of statute. So we always show this as 3 bienniums. We're asking you to only approve 15-17. So you can see here in summary, as I had discussed earlier this year, we had hoped that our target was actually $345 million in major capital projects. After further conversations with DOA, they asked us not to include the advance enumeration dollars that we had received last biennium. That reduced our target down. In essence, we are looking at a target of about $250 million in GFSB, including instructional space for majors. So the summation of our program, our recommendation to you, all projects, all funds, is $606 million for major projects, those that are worth $3 million or more, $76 million for all agency projects, $10 million for instructional, and $40 million for small projects. Small projects are those between 0 and 185,000. All agency is 185 and 3. And that's increasingly becoming a category that's very difficult for us to operate in because many of our projects actually are closer to about the $5 million range. The GFSB request will be $299 million for majors, 50 for all agency, 10 for instructional, and 24 for smalls. We are about $25 million over the target that they have asked us to meet. We intend to spend the fall working very closely with the DOA to close out old projects and re-enumerate dollars that exist within those projects so that we can bring this down. In addition, we have 3 projects now that are just going through some pre-design. We didn't anticipate we would need to enumerate them. They're on the list to be enumerated, and we are hoping that at the end of this fall, they'll either have to be enumerated and the dollar will come down, or they will not have to be enumerated, and we can put them through all agency. And these are 2 utility projects and a renovation of an exterior envelope at Stout. As you can see, we've taken a conservative approach to our spending. Each successive biennium requests outpace available funds, and in 6 years, we will be conservatively $924 million behind where we would like to be. I say conservatively because those projects are neither escalated, nor do we know what future master plans will bring to us. Our second major group of funding is program revenue supported borrowing. Those are projects that are for utilities, parking, residence halls, dining halls, student center projects, in essence, auxiliary projects. As you can see, the request for the 6-year plan in 15-17 institutions have requested about $274 million, a decrease of $111 million from last biennium. It should be noted that there are actually 5 capital projects in the 17-19 list that we may bring to you before the end of the year, which could increase the capital request from 15-17 to up to $215 million. And last but certainly not least is cash and gifts and grants. At the moment, the capital plan has about $75 million in it for major capital projects, and in the out years we see about 119 and 69. We do sometimes receive cash gifts or grants for other programs. They tend to come through the process as we get closer to the project. Thought I was going to skip that. As noted within the gray shaded area between 08 and 14, actual debt service payments for GFSB range from as low as 53 to as high as 236 per year. Our actual enumeration over this period was a slow, steady pattern of growth. The uneven nature of GFSB payments reflects direct management activities by the Capital Finance Unit of DOA, which borrows funds on behalf of all state agencies, regardless of repayment source. We have estimated debt service payments from 15 through 17 based on 13-15's capital and our current capital request. There is a lag in the timeline for when borrowing occurs. We cannot predict actual borrowing by the DOA, which is why it's not in the gray area. They have been actively refinancing since July of 13, and they have indicated to us at the last State Building Commission meeting that they've saved nearly $95 million over a $695 million program. Not too long ago, so each year DOA provides a GFSB budget for UW system to meet the needs of its debt service requirements. With regard to PRSB, or Program Revenue Supported Borrowing, we anticipate the impact in 15 and 16 to reflect projects enumerated in 13-15, and we can begin to see the impact of the 15-17 proposal in the year 17. Recently, DOA refinanced some of our bonds, and we realized a saving of $3.7 million that will be applied across various projects in the system included within those bond refinancing packages. So institutions will see a reduction in their future payments over the life of the bonds. We have 29 major projects included within the 15-17 plan, and they are as follows. 10 academic and research projects ranging from new and replacement space to renovation and demolition of existing. 2 administrative support projects, including acquisition of a condominium unit. 6 student health, athletic, recreation, supporting fields and structure projects. 3 utility projects. 3 residence hall renovations, 1 new residence hall and renovation of guest rooms, and 2 dining hall renovation projects. Some of you had the opportunity to tour the Madison Chemistry Building. It is simply outdated, outmoded, and unable to accommodate their students. The proposal is to demolish a portion of that complex, renovate, and build new. We were able to acquire an 880,000 gross square foot complex, the former Columbia St. Mary Hospital, on behalf of UW-Milwaukee. Renovation of that utility infrastructure will permit them to occupy that building. You can see just this pictorial how much fire sprinkler system we have to do. Upgrades include failing piping, mechanical systems, exterior envelope, and roof. And in the end, they'll be able to use that space for the College of Health Sciences nursing, auxiliary food service, retail, and for surge space as we begin to address other necessary improvements on that campus. I think most of you have seen this. Behind that dilapidated solar panel system is a storage space that the School of Veterinary Medicine would like to convert into a clinical skills laboratory designed for learning with prosthetic models and group learning space and storage. A 2-story, 32,000 square foot office and lab wedge is next in the master plan, which will allow them to consolidate and relocate medical research activity across the campus. Construction of a new basketball practice facility will relieve scheduling pressures on Klotchke, as well as other recreation spaces on campus. This will allow them to increase those and meet pressing needs. The fourth of a facilities renewal program, Babel Hall, was constructed in 1977, and it provides for the renovation and various upgrades of instructional spaces and undergraduate science labs. However, in the last biennium, this project funds were reduced, and so we are back now asking to have those funds restored to finish this project. It will allow them to install a new HVAC system and do various electrical upgrades. Phase 1 of the 42-year-old Wiley Hall replaces mechanical and electrical systems, installs new elevators. But more importantly, it allows for the establishment and renovation of a learning commons and consolidation of various student and academic services scattered throughout that complex. I think the picture says everything. We had hoped to do this as an all-agency project. However, as the scope we got more deeply into it, we learned that it needed significant more upgrade than we had thought. This is the oldest structure on the UW Stout campus, 1897, and it's home to various student service departments and serves as a classroom building. At Stevens Point, they would like to consolidate various student learning, care center, health clinic, and counseling center into a new student health and recreation center in concurrence with their master plan on the northern part of campus. And our last group of projects are the residence hall and utility projects. We did try to find a picture that didn't have Christmas on it, but we couldn't find one. So we have, as we've talked about before, we need to upgrade, replace aging and failing mechanical systems, increase electrical and telecommunications capacity, accessibility, programmatic upgrades, and in general modernize many of these facilities across our campuses. At Eau Claire, they would like to renovate a towers complex. It's a 1966 group. 1,287 beds, extension, guest room, HVAC upgrades. Increasing enrollment at La Crosse has driven them to need another 300 new beds in a semi-suite style facility. And as part of comprehensive renovation program at Stevens Point and Stout, 3 residence halls will undergo renovation. When we receive project requests from the institutions, we ask them to estimate their operating impact. They look at materials, custodial, maintenance, energy, and FTE. The state does provide utility funds to us. Each institution will have to bear the cost of these operating increases within their current budget allotment. For SEG fees, we have 3 projects within the plan that required for additional SEG fee. At Milwaukee, in May, the SUFAC approved support for a $50 increase to support athletic facility improvements for the basketball building. At Platteville, in April of 13, a student referendum voted to approve an increase in fall of 16 for $183 a year through 2037 for their Fieldhouse addition. At Stevens Point, in March, the student referendum vote approved a phased segregated fee increase not to exceed $275 annually, beginning in 15, continuing through 46. In 14, it's $50. It goes to $75 in 15, and then another $150 on top of that through the life of a 30-year bond. In summation, the proposed capital budget impacts a small portion of our overall square footage, of which is more than 62 million square feet. More than 45% of our space was constructed between 1950 and 1975. Resulting in significantly more requests from institutions to replace aging mechanical systems, address failing exterior envelopes, improve accessibility, and grapple with programmatic upgrades in facilities that were not designed to be flexible. And finally, about 2/3 of the projects included within this plan are for renovation of existing facilities, another 1/3 for new and replacement, and just a smidgen for demolition.
Questions, comments? Yes, Jen?
Alex, what is the bottom line in terms of what we're asking for, all funds?
All funds?
Yeah, it's about $700 million.
732 million.
Good, that's what I thought. In your text, you say that it's a modest increase over the last biennium. Would you define modest? What percentage increase do we have?
I meant over the GFSB. So we are going 5% over the GFSB, so that's the modest increase.
How much is the increase? How much is the 700? What did
So
we ask for?
we would have our target, so for 13-15, it was 341 million. So our target here is 358 million. And at the moment, what sits before you is about 385. So we're about 25 off.
But I'm sorry, I'm not being clear. I'm asking a different question.
Okay.
We're asking for about $700 million in all funds borrowing now for the next biennium.
Yes, ma'am.
What was the similar request 2 years ago?
There's a lot of tables when it gets to the capital budget. The capital budget for 13-15 totaled 412 PR, 291 for GPR, so about 700, pretty close to the same, about 700.
All right, thank you.
And one of the flexibilities is obviously the PR and the cash side. That side, you know, if an institution, let's say, raises significant dollars, and if you look at the charts throughout the program, you'll see there are a significant number of projects that are fully cash funded.
Other questions, comments? Entertain a motion for the capital budget.
Second.
Further, Regina?
I had a couple of questions. This is the total motion. One of my questions is, we had some projects that weren't actually approved for this current budget. What's happened with those projects? Are those are some residential projects. Are they going to be completed, and how does that fit in?
Do you mean the projects that have been in the press?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Just trying to get context there, sorry. We have two new residence halls, one at Whitewater and one at Eau Claire. Both had started and had been put on hold. So we're working with the DOA to try and get them moving forward. I don't have any more information than that.
Okay, very good. And if... Yeah.
No, I apologize. They are previously enumerated.
Into part of this.
No, they're previously enumerated. They're already on the books. They've
They're
been approved by the region,
enumerated,
approved
so
by the
we may
legislature.
spend them, but it's money that's already been allocated for them.
And in fact, the universities have set those dollars aside to pay for them, yes.
Thank you.
Yes, Charlie.
Just following up, though, do we believe, and following up on Regent Milner's question, do we believe that the delays in these projects symbolize anything going forward in terms of future building projects that the state may engage in? And if so, what might we be thinking about that? And would that have any impact on our requests?
We really have no reason to think so at this time.
Other comments, questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you. At this time, we're going to shift a little bit and focus on diversity. For more than 20 years, the UW system has endeavored to be a national leader in diversity in higher education, and this board has actively supported a number of plans to move the needle. Most recently, in 2009, the Board of Regents, in consultation with the UW system and institutional leadership, expressed its support for inclusive excellence as the system's strategic plan. Its focus is on integrating diversity goals into the core operation and functions across UW system administration and institutions. Since its inception, the UW system has strived to provide students with the highest quality academic, leadership, and social experiences possible. To maintain excellence and retain its competitive edge, the UW system must not only achieve diversity amongst its students, faculty, and staff, but it must also create teaching, learning, and living environments that support excellence, equity, and success for all. The Regents have played a vital role in establishing and maintaining the UW system's commitment to diversity. This past March, we directed UW system administration to provide a status update on the system's accomplishments in the 5 years since inclusive excellence was adopted. We will hear the first of a two-part status update report today. And with that, I will turn the floor over to Vicki Washington, Associate Vice President of the Office of Inclusivity, Diversity, Equity, and Student Success. Vicki?
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Good afternoon, Regent President Falbo, Vice President Milner, President Cross, Chancellors, Provost, and other guests. I am pleased to talk with you today about the University of Wisconsin's journey toward equity and inclusion. This, as President Falbo has mentioned, is the first of a couple of conversations we will have. And to begin, I'd like to start with a brief history of our diversity efforts in the UW system. The purpose of today's presentation is threefold. It will provide a historical context for our diversity efforts, highlight the overall progress we have made to date, and set the stage for a larger conversation in October, where we will discuss the myriad ways our institutions are working toward diversifying their campuses with a focus on their top 3 inclusive excellence goals. The story of UW System's commitment to diversity has its roots in several key board resolutions, which have been described briefly for you here. As board minutes and other historical documents have noted, these resolutions emerged from thousands of hours of discussions and debate that revolved around several key questions. First, how do we ensure that all Wisconsin students, regardless of racial or social economic background, have equitable access to a high-quality education in this state? How do we prepare our students so that they are equipped to compete and lead in an increasingly diverse state, nation, and world? And what role should the UW system play in these efforts? The UW system answered these questions by stepping forward with 2 10-year strategic plans for diversity, Design for Diversity and its successor, Plan 2008. In both instances, it was presumed that if we were successful in meeting the plan's overarching goals of eliminating gaps and underrepresentation of minority and disadvantaged people across the system, we would achieve several important aims, including increasing the talent pool for the state by producing more high-quality graduates and producing high-quality college graduates who would be better prepared to compete and lead in our increasingly diverse state and nation because of their rich academic and leadership experiences and the personal growth gained through interactions with people of different backgrounds. While gains were made under Design for Diversity and Plan 2008, enrollment rates increased significantly, for example. We came to understand that there were implementation challenges that affected the scale of the results we had hoped to see. One such challenge was that the work was done in silos and typically led by a few individuals, which limited the widespread engagement and participation that would be needed to sustain long-term change. Additionally, defining interventions and solutions to help students was not always driven by data-informed practices. This made it difficult to ascertain whether a particular program was producing real results for the students who most needed support. To help institutions with their diversity planning efforts under Inclusive Excellence, the newest iteration of our diversity work We created a series of guiding principles that we then asked institutions to keep in mind as they set about determining what their next steps would be in this arena. As the list here reveals, we asked the campuses to think not only about goals and strategies, but the organizational conditions that would enable more robust results, including fuller integration, stronger coordination, a continued focus on quality, and a sustained commitment to equity. Now, let's briefly turn to what our efforts mean for this increasingly diverse state of ours and its workforce. As you've heard alluded to several different times today, or addressed directly actually, the face of our state is changing and has been changing since the 1990s. The population of people of color in Wisconsin has nearly doubled, with the greatest growth coming from Hispanic or a Latino population that has increased by more than 4 percentage points. We are also experiencing significant growth among younger generations of people of color. By 2027, the percentage of high school graduates of color is expected to almost triple in size. Now let's take a look at our labor force and its current composition. And this is what our current civilian labor force looks like today. These are people aged 16 years old and older. Collectively, the last two slides in combination with this suggest that in order to continue producing the high-quality skilled graduates the state needs to remain economically viable, we must remain focused on ensuring that people of color have access to our institutions and are successful in earning degrees. It could easily be argued that there are few other entities in the state capable of shaping the talent pool that serves and will continue to serve the state's workforce than our UW system. As this slide shows, we have a remarkable level of influence at every point in the educational pipeline. How we leverage our policies, programs, and resources will have a direct impact not only on our workforce and our businesses, but on the strength of our communities across the state. It's also worth noting that our pursuit of greater diversity is entirely in line with our mission as a public system of higher education. We have and should continue to ensure that all students who seek a quality education from any of our institutions receive one. I'd like to talk briefly about the progress we've made to date. We continue making gains in ensuring, for people of color, ensuring access, especially since 1988, when you see the trajectory is basically continually going upward. This is especially true for the Hispanic Latino population, where the trajectory has spiked. Yet, as this slide shows, not every group has experienced the same level of growth. Since 1988, the number of Hispanic or Latino students enrolling in our system has increased by nearly 4,200 students. The enrollment of American Indian students, however, continues to lag behind those of every other group and has actually decreased over time. African Americans, Southeast Asians, and other Asians all declined since 2011. Clearly, there is more work to be done across the UW system to ensure that all of these populations have equitable access. We have seen a growth in the number of degrees conferred to students of color at all levels. Here, too, the growth has been greatest for Hispanic and Latino students. Degrees earned by African American students is also marked by steady growth. Where we have not seen enough growth in degrees earned at all levels, again, is among American Indian students. To shift the conversation a little bit, let's talk about what we're expending on M&D programs, our multicultural disadvantage programs. For the 2012-13 year, our expenditures on state GPR on M&D programs has been approximately $27 million. which is about 1.1% of the GPR budget system-wide. On average, that is an expenditure of roughly $1,100 per student in that group of students. When you add all sources of funding, we have expended approximately $64 million, close to $65 million, for M&D funding across the state at all institutions. And that would include institutional scholarships, extramural funding, and federal funding as well. In the final section of this presentation, I will briefly highlight future directions. Although we've made progress in ensuring greater access and degree completion, we have not been able to consistently close the gaps in retention between underrepresented minority students and their non-underrepresented counterparts. The closest narrowing of the gap occurred in 2009 when the gap stood at 6%. Regrettably, it has widened since. Similarly, we have not been able to close the gap in graduation rates between underrepresented minority students and non-underrepresented students. The graduation gap is smaller than it's ever been, but not even close, at 19%. Collectively, both sets of data suggest that there's still more work to be done if we as a system are truly embracing inequity. So thinking about moving forward, what are some of the things we need to focus on? We need to continue to focus on leadership commitment, demonstrated leadership commitment, both visible and engaged, such as what do our leadership teams look like? How is this issue addressed on our meeting agendas? What do our messages look like? Do they routinely incorporate diversity and inclusion? How are we structuring our budgets? How are we structuring our budgets, our reward and incentives so that we are rewarding people who are focused on this priority and demonstrating their commitment to diversity? And how are we establishing our data routines to constantly evaluate the effectiveness of the strategies that we've implemented? The other area where I think we probably need to focus our attention has to do with workforce diversity. Are we really establishing hiring targets and monitoring attrition and promotions? Lastly, we need to focus on stakeholder engagement as well. That area raises for us questions about the degree to which our partners and community partners that we collaborate with, how are they addressing issues of diversity? Are they aware of the ways in which we've prioritized that work to ensure that we have adequate relationships with organizations that are fostering an environment that will advance our institutional priorities? Lastly, President Cross has asked every institution in the system to submit an interim report detailing the status of current inclusive excellence goals, strategies, and results. We will come back to you again in October and present a summary report that characterizes current efforts undertaken by our institutions as they continue to move the needle. Additionally, we are hoping to conduct a series of campus visits to learn more about what they are doing specifically in carrying out their inclusive excellence goals and determine what type of strategic collaborations we may be able to facilitate as a system. We will have more information about all of those efforts in October. And that's the end of the preview. Thanks.
Thank you. Any questions, Jose?
I have a question. Oh, sorry. Jerry had.
Can I do this? Thank you.
That was cute.
Jose?
On more than one occasion, Regent Farrell has expressed, and I think rightly so, concern about the education that's happening at the public schools, at the secondary schools, and then they become our students. And in many instances, I do agree with her, probably pretty much agree with her completely on that. Which brings me to this question, Vicki. In light of the comment earlier about now how the presence of students of color continues to grow in the high schools or
secondary grades. What thoughts are happening at the university where we clearly have to say we can't depend on the secondary schools to prepare these students for us, and yet they're going to be coming at our doors? What is the discussion? Is there discussion that saying we cannot just simply hope, wish, and pray that that whole system is gearing up and already making and will be making some significant strides to give us better prepared students of color?
Sure.
What are your thoughts on that?
Well, yes, I would say there definitely are discussions because everyone is grappling with that issue. What we're doing is a kind of multi-pronged approach to addressing the problem. One is there are a number of initiatives at the system level where some faculty and universities are working closely with K-12 to address the problems around, say, math and English, which is where we have the big issues on remediation and developmental education. The other is many institutions are taking a pipeline approach to their pre-college program, so they're starting to work with students much earlier in their academic lives, starting with middle school. And a component of many of those programs has to do with strengthening the work and the relationships with parents around academic preparation and getting students into the pipeline. So there are a number of different strategies that institutions are employing. A third one would be bridge programs where students are coming to campus during the summer, the year before they matriculate and the summer before they matriculate to really focus on their academic skill building to support success in that first and second semester. And there are many others that the chancellors could probably speak to better than I, or provost. Yeah.
Regina? Chair? You decide.
Vicki. Vicki.
Yeah. You can come up here.
You can sit right here. You sure? Okay.
Vicki has actually articulated a lot of things that are going on. I've had the experience of sort of seeing some of this turnaround at the University of Wisconsin-Platteville. I think the first thing that we have to do and focus on is getting the whole system focused on academic achievement. There's a lot of other modules about inclusive excellence, but at the end of the day, it's focusing on what are the outcomes that you want from students and how do you get them there. A point that I'd make is you have to institutionalize this. In some ways, on some campuses, and I won't speak to specifically, but I know one of the first things they had to overcome at Platteville is this was getting more and more segregated from the mainstream of what was going on. Students were being recruited by an entity other than the admissions office, so the admissions office wasn't involved in that. I reversed that trend. You have to get everything aligned, if you're serious about this, with the normal course of doing business. So no one should work in admissions if they don't know part of their task is to attract a diverse student body. And the commentary I'd make to you is that the difficulties that we're having with these populations of students are the canary in the coal mine. Because if these students are struggling, there are large swaths of the rest of the student populations that aren't being successful. And so this is where we need to start. At Platteville, at every step along the way, the pre-college programs, we've revamped them to focus on academic achievement. I think the point that Vicki made about getting the parents more engaged is a huge step in this process, and if we can do that directly and not count on school systems to do all of that, but get the parents directly involved in it, it's very important. on campus, once they're enrolled, one of the things that we have made some progress on, but is extraordinarily important, is aggressive intervention when somebody doesn't show up to class early in their careers, getting to them. If you can, or they don't do well on quizzes or exams, finding that out early in the process and getting connected with them is extraordinarily important. So my focus at Platteville has been on academic achievement. It's amazing how a lot of these other issues that affect campus climate and that kind of thing can be turned around once students are achieving significantly. You see them more involved across the range of issues on campus, all the different events and student government and that kind of thing. As soon as you establish a pattern that they're being successful academically.
Regina.
All right, Regina Whitburn, I'll go ahead. A couple of things. First of all, it was very interesting. My first note that I put down was 2009. And then at the very end of the presentation, we talked about the beginning gap between the students, and it began to happen. They were converging, and in 2009, they began to diverge. Those are two interesting dates. And I imagine it has something to do with recruitment, something that Chancellor Shields just talked about. And that's bound to happen. The other thing that I'm concerned about is this is something that is so important for our state. The idea that every student in this state, regardless of how soon they came here, regardless of how long they have been here, and tomorrow we're going to deal with we're going to talk about the initiatives that we're taking with our Native Americans to begin to bring them closer into the system. This is something that we need to do as a state. The strength of this state, the strength of our economy is based on all of our young students graduating from high school being successful. And if we are, and the idea that these are somehow a separate and a distinct part of all those students is, yes, it's true, but yes, it is not true. We are interested in all of our students, and I'm particularly interested in how we're managing this and how we are measuring our own success in this. We are committed to this. We're committed to it because it's important. It's important for them individually. I mentored a student who came here from Vietnam when she was 16 years old, and she just graduated this year from the University of Wisconsin. I am so proud of what she's done, and I'm proud to be able to have watched this young woman succeed over that period of time. So there's no question that every one of us in this room feels strongly about this issue. Feel strongly about having our students, all of our students, but particularly our more challenged students, the students that have more difficulty in making the transition, be successful. So I am hopeful in October that we'll hear much about successful initiatives, that we'll hear much about what works and what doesn't work, because what doesn't work we should get rid of. Exactly. The other thing that I'm concerned about is diversity, but diversity from another perspective. We've talked about diversity in color. Let's talk also about this underrepresented minorities and the issues that each one of those groups face. We have 4 different groups who have different challenges. Tomorrow we're going to talk about one. We've talked about other challenges. We have young people graduating from high school whose families have been here far longer than any of us have. We're going to talk about that tomorrow. We have new immigrants here in both the Asian and the Southeastern Asia population and in our Latino Hispanic population who are coming here. They have different challenges. Each one has a different challenge. So the strategies, the techniques that we use for them perhaps need to be tweaked. But in tweaking them, let's remember, we serve all of our students. And these students are best served if they're served as part of a whole, rather than some, as my student said to me, I'm not an exotic animal. I have problems just like everyone else does. These are part of our student body. I feel very keenly about getting this done and getting this done the way it should be, so that instead of a divergence from 2009, we have those two graphs coming together.
Well, that graph's up there, and then I'll go to Jose. A lot of us were part of the plan 2008, and we're part of the ongoing development of it and watching it, monitoring it. And you see that as the gap started getting bigger, that plan had ended.
Right.
And I'd like your thoughts on that, that if we were not defined well enough after that, if we did not pay enough attention after that, I'd like your view on it.
A lot of things happened at the conclusion of 2008. I think that when we had the structure of the same goals across the system, it was easy to monitor it in that sense. Are we making progress? And we did have to account more to the board for results. Since the conclusion of that plan, we didn't ask campuses to submit their IE plans to system. We didn't really require reports. And so, in part, I would say we need to change our habit of mind and functioning around that. But in all honesty, it looks to me, based on the early review of the submissions of the campus reports, that campuses are doing really good work. And I think we'll be able to share a lot of the progress that they are making, and many of them are taking differentiated approaches to the various student populations in the way that Regent Milner was expressing. So I think we'll see good outcomes. The other thing is that it really is better for the campuses to not have a standardized set of goals, because it allows them to really prioritize based on their resources, their demographics, and the mission of their respective institutions. It doesn't mean, however, that their metrics we shouldn't account for statewide, and I think we are already doing that with retention and graduation, but we need to allow some flexibility for their strategies to fit the problems they're trying to address. And that was something I think that campuses struggled with when we had the standardized goals for every institution that didn't allow for that level of flexibility.
I'm going to go to Jose on that.
And Chancellor Blank has her hand up too.
Sure.
I just want to make a comment on this data. I run the risk of the comments going to the economic cycles and everything, but I think it's not by chance that the smallest number occurs right after a recession.
Yes. Yeah.
And therefore students are not probably out that reason to stay in school. So I would guess a lot of that variation has more to do with labor market than it does with what's happening on campus.
Yeah, that is our hunch too, but we don't have the data.
Jose? David?
I just have a question. The covenant, I know it didn't last long. What was the impact of that, and what was the makeup of it?
I would not venture to answer that question without more accurate information. I think the covenant really it's about to end now, so it lasted approximately 6 years. I'm not sure if we have Heather's gone. I don't know that we have the data on the makeup of it.
You can give it to us when you
but we can look for that and have it in October.
The question is really, did that reach out to certain groups that we're not reaching out to? And secondly, did the effort starting so early make a difference in retention?
Right, and we ask that question a lot, but I don't think we have good information because of the way that program was administered, starting at a certain grade level in public education. Yeah.
Not as much a question as just a comment and suggestion, and it's one that I'm going to become just a broken record on this. I would encourage you to also have our campuses look at, most specifically in Milwaukee, and I think also UW Parkside relative to its charter school. you need to look at charter schools and choice schools because they are, especially in the Milwaukee area, they're significantly have large percentage of students of color. And whether we agree, disagree, whether they're successful or not, one of their primary themes is that they're preparing students for college. And so I think the university needs to be involved with them also, and not just simply the public schools. One thing that really pains me when I go visit many of those schools, and with a great degree of pride they talk about all the campus visits that they make, it's very seldom that I see a UW campus banner or pendant or whatever. And I'll see many of the historical black colleges, I'll see Harvard, I'll see Yale, I'll see all sorts of other colleges and universities, but I don't see many, I can't remember, to be honest with you, that I saw a Green Bay or an Oshkosh or a Platteville pennant that says we're also going to take our students there. And so I would highly encourage the system to not just focus its attention on the public schools, but also, one of our regents, Jose Delgado, sits on the board of one of the largest Catholic school in the country that is 99% choice students. And St. Anthony Academy is geared specifically to get students into the university. That's over 1,000 kids that they see every day, and their primary goal is that they're getting all of those Hispanic kids to go to college. But I wonder how many of our campuses have ever even talked to anybody at St. Anthony's.
We don't have that data. It's certainly a question we can ask.
Regent Hurst.
Thank you. As far as the report in October goes, is that going to encompass all groups of diversity or just things based on race?
It will involve a combination of dimensions of diversity. Some will be based on race, and then there are other income and probably sexual orientation and other categories as well, and climate.
Are veterans going to be included on that?
I think a couple of campuses did report on veterans. So we asked for the top 3 goals, and it could be the case that more are doing work with veterans, but it wasn't among their top 3.
Are there any plans to have that as like put them on an actual tracker at all?
When you say national tracker,
put them on an actual tracker as far as making sure the veterans are graduating on time and staying in college.
We do have people that are working with veterans along those lines. It's just not something that it probably has been included in some of the campus inclusive excellence reports. We can find out more information for you.
Thank you.
On the veteran piece, actually, there's a deep veteran movement in Washington. And I think Clinton, at least
Yeah. We have staff dedicated to working with veterans, but I don't know whether or not it's a part of their campus inclusive excellence plans.
Regent Higgins.
Well, I appreciate the information that's been provided here. It looks like we're spending about $65 million a year on various diversity things. It looks like, I don't think there was any big increase or decrease in that particular year, so it seems, I would assume it's relatively constant. And we're spending a lot of money and not really moving the needle very well. I don't get the same impression you do about the efficacy of the effort we're putting in our campuses. And I'm concerned about specifically that on your slides aren't numbered, but it's the one about in 2010 the UW system adopted a planning process known as inclusive excellence. And the second point points out that it operates under a broader definition of diversity. Well, I've read the minutes of the 2009 March meeting. There wasn't any definition of diversity included in those minutes, and I still haven't gotten an answer about what we mean by diversity. We've talked a lot, and we show a lot of information about racial and ethnic diversity, but we haven't talked about what does that mean when within the inclusive excellence rubric. And another thing that bothers me is that three key foci, and equity and outcomes. I'm not sure that equity and outcomes is a very desirable goal. To me, it sounds like we're all supposed to come out the same. I don't think that's what the system stands for. I think we're more equity and opportunity. So, these are the kinds of questions I'd like to have answered in October, because I don't expect you to be on the spot. I'm sorry that I had to ask them now because we didn't see this ahead of time, so we didn't have a chance to prepare ourselves for it.
Well, to assure you, equity in outcomes is not equal outcomes. It really means to account for the variable circumstances that each student or groups of students experience at our campuses. So in terms of the definition of diversity, it is, as you mentioned earlier, any human difference. At the same time, we know that some differences have a much greater impact on the likelihood of success with students in our institutions. So they don't all have the same effect, even though diversity in its essence is any human difference.
Okay. Vicki, thank you very much. Appreciate it, and we'll see you in October. I'd like to take one step back to go back to the capital budget request, and I think there's some comments that I might have moved along too fast to allow them to be heard. So, anybody?
Yes,
Ed?
have the resolution from this body, and I'll read it. Let it be resolved that the University of Wisconsin system.
Let it be resolved that the University of Wisconsin System Board of Regents reaffirms its support for the UW-Eau Claire Confluence Project and directs the President or his designees to work with the Department of Administration to implement the project. We have been working on this in the Eau Claire community for a long time. And I would like to say that this is an important project. We have for years been directing our campuses to collaborate with our communities for many, many reasons. And the Eau Claire campus has done that in certain areas, but nothing to this degree. We have the Confluence Project, and I'm not going to pretend to give you an overview of this, but it's very important for our campus, for our students that are involved in the arts and the theater and have those majors, because we have a lot of people that come out with degrees and do very well in this world and are trained by our professors and our staff at that campus. And they need a new facility. This facility would help the campus, benefit the campus, and at the same time, because of the collaboration with the city, the county, businesses, local people, and there are many, many of them that I can't mention all of them now, but who have worked many, many hours, days, months, and years to make this collaboration come true. We've had referendums for the county and city, and this is truly an example of what can be accomplished by a collaboration from a campus and a community, and in this case, the entire Chippewa Valley. So I would ask that we support this, that we resolve as read to support this project. And I don't have anything further to say about it at this time. Other people may.
I was under the assumption, correct me, correct, that was part of the resolution, that was in the resolution. Okay.
Mr. Chairman, if I could, I would just like to add a few brief comments. Know that this is a tremendous regional economic development project. It's not just about the city of Eau Claire. It's not just about Eau Claire County. Rather, this will have incredible positive impact to western Wisconsin. This is truly the work of years of hard work by stakeholders from across the region. Know that, as Regent Manydeeds had mentioned, there have been 2 referendums on this. And because I'm a numbers person, and I'm always persuaded by the numbers, and looking at those 2 referendums, the questions were one to the city, people in the city, one to the county, and that was, should the city and the county invest in this project? The county came back with 54% in favor, 46% opposed. The city came back with 59% in favor, 41% opposed. When you look at those strong numbers, no matter how you look at them, you analyze them or you try to slice them, that sends a very clear, strong conveying message that this project has tremendous support. In fact, from a historical perspective, if we took those numbers and compared them to historical presidential elections, it would be a landslide of the type that the U.S. has never seen. So because those numbers are important, I did want to point them out briefly.
Since Nixon.
So, in modern times, as I was saying, this is a project with incredible broad-based appeal and support, and I know that Regent Milner would like to add a couple of comments as well. Thank you.
Well, I know we've already passed on the motion, but we appreciate getting a chance to talk about it. Actually, we're reaffirming something that was passed almost at one of my very first meetings, so I remember it. So this is really a reaffirmation of the board's support. But I just want to, I'm not from Eau Claire, and I want to speak to this. I had an opportunity to see the area where this project is going. And it was reminiscent of something I was involved with in Madison. I've had an opportunity over the years to be involved in major projects, commercial projects that involved, and I have come to understand the real power of public-private partnerships. They create jobs, they stimulate the creation and expansion of other businesses, and we've seen it in Madison with the development of Monona Terrace. And I've seen how directly and indirectly they improve a region's quality of life. I think that's been confirmed by the region's support of it in the referendums. 18 months ago, I had a chance to visit Eau Claire for the very first time. I'd always gone to Minnesota through La Crosse, so it was the first time I got to see Eau Claire. It's just a lovely area, and the campus is just a wonderful campus. This confluence project will turn what is a blighted area along the river into a vibrant, it has the opportunity to turn it into a vibrant, creative area of creativity. I saw it right away, and now since then I understand there have been other projects that have gone in and really enhanced that opportunity. It's a real opportunity to leverage private sector and philanthropic investments from outside, and they are already beginning to see it. So even though I'm not from Eau Claire, this is a real opportunity for an important campus within our system to be both helped and help the area. So we've already passed the resolution, we've already passed the motion, but this gives us an opportunity to just speak about it a bit. Thank you.
Good. And if you haven't been talked to or influenced by somebody from UW-Eau Claire sometime today, there's still time. I think the CEO of your Chamber of Commerce was here. Is still here. Okay. Okay. And I know this has been a moving target. So since we first started talking about this, so it might be, Ray, a good idea if we can get whatever the current situation is, how, because I don't know. But I do know it's been a moving target. I do know it's exciting. I do know that the Eau Claire Nation is excited about it, and I think that makes all of us excited about it. But I think we need an update for us to get more excited about it. And I'm sure you'd be very willing to do that. A little bit. And also, I'd like to thank Representative Hintz for being here. Thank you. Thanks for coming. Okay. With that, I will call upon Vice President Milner to present the resolution to move into closed session.
I move that the Board of Regents move into closed session to consider two student requests for review of two UW-Madison decisions as permitted by Section 1985, Sub 1, Sub A and G, Wisconsin Stat, and confer with legal counsel regarding pending or potential litigation is permitted by Section 1985, 1 sub G, Wisconsin Stat.
Is there a second? Would you take a roll call vote, please?
Regent Baling? Regent Bradley? Regent Delgado? Regent Evers? Regent Falbo?
Yes.
Regent Farrow? Regent Hall? Regent Harsey?
He said yes.
Regent Higgins? Regent Menides?
Yes.
Regent Milner?
Yes.
Regent Mueller? Regent Peterson? Regent Pruitt? Regent Purat? Regent Vasquez? Regent Walsh? Regent Whitburn?
Okay, we will take 5 minutes to clear the room and